Thank you very much. My name is Tadios Munodawafa. I'm a PhD management student with Peter Marisbeck campus. I'm going to show you my presentation in a moment. Thank you very much again for inviting me. Let me proceed straight away with my presentation. My topic is disruptive technologies and sustainability of higher education in the post-COVID-19 era. This paper reviews disruptive technologies and sustainability of higher education in the post-COVID-19 era. The emergence of COVID-19 pandemic was a disruption which resulted in higher education institutions transforming the way content was delivered to learners. The challenges of social distancing and travel restrictions led to online learning and a host of other remote activities between learners and higher education institutes. The paper is structured as follows. The first section presents the background of the problem, followed by a brief literature review. The theories which are related to disruptive technologies in higher education are presented and justified. The methodology which was used to collect, analyze, and report the findings is explained, followed by the discussion of the findings and implications for higher research institutions. The COVID-19 pandemic caught higher education unprepared, and management communities and learners in higher education had little time to adapt to the pandemic. Learning approaches were rapidly transformed from the traditional brick and mortar classroom where learning was face-to-face to online teaching and learning approaches where content was remotely delivered and consumed. This short space of time did not give management of higher education institutes the opportunity to identify the most robust and coherent metrics to evaluate the effectiveness of e-learning, considering the short notice given by the pandemic. The major challenges arose from the poor infrastructure and technologies which are currently used to deliver e-learning, especially in developing countries. The current infrastructure to support e-learning, internet backbone, bandwidth, and high cost of data seems to be inadequate to seamlessly support e-learning in higher education. Disruptive technologies have been successfully deployed in other sectors like healthcare, communication, finance, and transportation. However, there seems to be no specific approach to assess the best tools to deliver e-learning and also to measure whether or not these tools are effective in higher education. My main research question is, how can disruptive technologies be effectively deployed in higher education in order to promote sustainable learning in the post-COVID-19 era? The sub-research questions are, what sustainability challenges does higher education face in post-COVID-19 era? How can disruptive technologies be used to overcome these challenges? What are the current limitations of disruptive technology deployment in higher education post-COVID-19? And what strategies can higher education implement in order to sustainably utilize disruptive technologies in the post-COVID-19 era? This is my brief literature review. The current challenges facing higher education with regard to disruptive technologies are as follows. Higher education institutions in developing countries face several challenges in the post-COVID-19 era. Both students and lecturers face adaptation challenges on the use of online learning platforms. This is because the vast array of different types of devices for both learners and lecturers and tools available in learner management systems. The use of e-learning is affected by individual behavior and motivation of users towards available technologies. In most cases, higher education institutions lack technical staff to support both lecturers and students to effectively utilize disruptive technologies. Most developing countries lack IT infrastructure to drive disruptive technologies, and this affects user access of these technologies. Both internet connection and signals are poor, especially in rural and remote areas, and this affects the quality and availability of online learning. The high cost of data bundles implies that the access to online learning is limited. Disruptive technologies currently in use are standard and at times outdated, and developing countries lack resources that can help them to accelerate to the next generation technologies like 5G and artificial intelligence. Scholars have suggested ways in which disruptive technologies can be used to overcome challenges. Governments in developing countries can accelerate digital connectivity and digital skills through shared infrastructure with the private sector, lower taxation for mobile devices, and digital services at higher education institutions. Higher education institutions can enter into partnerships with private sector to provide free access to online tutoring to lecturers and students so that they acquire digital skills, which are important for the utilization of technology. Higher education institutions should upgrade their IT infrastructure and adopt robust technology toolsets to deliver richer education to a wider audience than before. Higher education institutions should embrace new disruptive technologies which emerged from the COVID-19 pandemic and use it to reach out to more students at a lower cost. There are also current limitations of disruptive technology deployment in higher education institutions in post-COVID-19 era. Some higher education institutions are returning to traditional face-to-face learning, and they risk becoming obsolete as a result. The rapid development and deployment of disruptive technologies resulted in a skills gap from lecturers who did not rapidly adopt appropriate digital skills to utilize new technologies. Equity is not always ensured since not all learners have adequate resources to embrace new technology for online learning in the post-COVID-19 era. Learner evaluation is rapidly transformed post-COVID-19, and most lecturers find it difficult to track the progress of each individual learner online. Staff training in new teaching and learning methodologies has also been inconsistent and incoherent, and this has affected sustainability of higher education. I have three theories which I found appropriate for my topic. The first one is Christensen's theory of disruptive innovation. The theory of disruption predicts that when an entrant tackles incumbent competitors head on, offering better products or services, the incumbents will accelerate their innovations to defend their business. The second theory is activity theory. Activity theory can be used to better understand the goals of e-learning in an academic setting and in a way that includes all of the major constituents and the influence of social and cultural norms, values, language, and tools. The third and last theory is the expansive learning. The central tenets of the theory of expansive learning focus on learning processes in which the very subject of learning is transformed from isolated individuals to collectives and networks. Initially, individuals begin to question the existing order and logic of their activity. This is a brief of Christensen's theory of disruptive innovation. At the top here, you have established companies which rely much on marketing their products. Right at the bottom, the shorter red line, it's a new company or a new product which is entering the market. And as you move from right to left, the new product starts at low quality, and then with the continuous development starts to attract the low end of customers until it overtakes the incumbent. This is the activity theory. The activity theory shows the interconnection of the tools and techniques, including the actors within the higher education institutions. When you adopt disruptive technologies, you can see some of these technologies are tools like Moodle, YouTube clips, computers. The subjects are students, lecturers, and then there are also some rules which are driving the network. Then the communities, peers, and lecturers, and then students and lecturers also have their own separate tasks. There is an objective associated with this entire setup to generate knowledge, to apply knowledge for learning. Then this is a diagram for expansive learning. You start up with questioning the status quo to say face-to-face learning is not working. for example, because of COVID-19, then a disruptive technology is used to deal with the pandemic, and you develop and adopt tool sets for online learning, and then you continuously review as the cycle moves in that clockwise direction. The methodology which I adopted was a systematic literature review conducted using databases, EBSCOhost, Google Scholar, ERIC, and Science Direct. There were 3 searches which were made for the period December 2020 to June 2022. The language of the journals was English. The results of the searches are shown here. The first one, the search phrase was rather weak, and it produced those few journals. I expanded it a little bit, and I got more journals. And then the final testing, I used Google Scholar to get 718 journals. There were also some selection processes and quality issues. I used a tool called the PRISM statement. PRISM means preferred reporting items for systematic review and meta-analysis. Titles and abstracts were screened in order to check the journals focused on disruptive technologies, higher education, situated in COVID-19 and in developing countries. The screening resulted in exclusion of 707 journals to remain with 11 journals. In terms of reliability, when 2 or more researchers assess each paper, agreement between researchers can be measured using the Cohen-Kappa statistic. A single researcher should consider discussing included and excluded papers with an expert panel. These were my major findings. The current IT infrastructure in higher education institutions is outdated and incompatible with most technologies. This implies that education is not being effectively delivered. Lecturers are generally unskilled and constantly rely on technical staff to create profiles and content for learners. However, higher education institutions also lack skilled technical staff to fully support both lecturers and learners. The current setup offers limited support to lecturers to conduct personalized and individual support to learners. Tools to support effective communication and mentoring between lecturers and learners on new technology platforms are inadequate. These are my implications. Higher education management and developers of technologies that are used on online learning should collaborate and identify the most optimal tools that are suitable for institutions in developing countries. There's need for additional support from governments and private sector to establish initiatives to promote technology in learning in higher education. This can be through strategic partnerships in the form of funding, tax incentives, sharing of IT infrastructure, and free upskilling of staff in higher education institutions. There is need for expansion of IT infrastructure across all higher education institutions, including those in rural and remote areas. In conclusion, there's evidence to suggest that higher education is currently experiencing a new norm, and institutions that return to traditional means of learning may become obsolete. The only way forward may be for higher education institutions to adopt disruptive technologies which help these institutions to reach a wider audience in the most effective way in terms of cost and convenience. New technologies should be geared towards dealing with future pandemics and disruptions in ways that ensure sustainability of higher education learning. Thank you very much. Let me know if there are any questions. Thank you.